Welcome, everyone. I had already started talking to you before I started the webinar. Oh my gosh, welcome, welcome. Just getting set up here. Welcome, come on in. Just gonna check, make sure you can see me and hear me, and then we are gonna dive in. I'm so excited for today's topic. All right. Let's see. Oh, fantastic, Jeff. Thank you. All right. Let's do this. I'm so excited. Welcome to the class on how to stop overing. I love this name so much, how to stop overing. We're going to talk specifically today on how to stop overeating, over drinking, overworking. But I want you to know this, that everything I'm going to teach you today, and I'm going to teach you 3 strategies that you can start using right away. Everything I'm going to teach you today, it applies to everything that you might find yourself overdoing. So if you find that you're scrolling through social media, or you just keep like online shopping, or you plan to watch like one TV show, and then the next thing you know, it's like 4 hours later, whatever it is that you find yourself overdoing, whatever it is that it feels kind of like hard to say no, or you can say no, like you can not do the thing for a while, but you just fall right back into the same pattern. That's what this class is about giving you strategies for permanent change. None of these kind of quick fixes. So before we dive in, and I'm going to dive in with some slides for all of you, I do want to introduce myself to all of you who may not know me. My name is Rachel Hart. I'm a master certified coach. I got certified with the Life Coach School in 2015. And I have been teaching inside of self-coaching scholars since 2017. And I will just tell you, I love, love, love helping people with this work and learning these tools, because I have seen how transformative it has been in my life. I've seen how transformative it has been for the thousands of people that I have worked with. And I'll just tell you, like, I know firsthand how deeply frustrating it can be to feel like, oh my God, like, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep eating too much or drinking too much? Or like, I promised myself that I'm not going to spend like another super late night at the office, and I do it all week long. I know how deeply frustrating it can be, and to feel like you're never going to figure this out. So that's what we're here to do, to show you that transformation is possible. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hold on one second. All right. Y'all should be able to see my screen now. I'm just going to bring up the Q&A so I can see that as well. So I mentioned we're going to be talking about all the things that we find ourselves overdoing, overeating, over drinking, overworking, anything, really anything that I'm teaching you here will apply. I'm going to spend the first part of this class really teaching you strategies. And then what we're going to do is we're going to dive into Q&A. So I'll be answering your questions because I know you're going to have a lot of them. And then I'm going to talk to you about self-coaching scholars. So this is a place where you can take everything that I'm going to teach you today, and you can work with coaches. You can really kind of do a deep dive into this work. But remember, the 3 strategies that I'm teaching you today, you can put into practice right away. So I just want all of you to kind of get used to using the Q&A box, because I really do want you to participate. So what I want you to do is answer the question in the Q&A. I'm the only one that can see it. What do you find yourself overdoing, and why? Now, listen, don't spend too much time with the why, just whatever first comes to mind for whatever it is you find yourself overdoing, overeating, over drinking, overworking, over Facebooking. What is it? And why do you think that you're doing it? What do you think the reason is? Now, I'm just going to tell you, for all of those of you listening right now, that you're like, oh my God, I do it in so many places. This was me for many years. I felt like I kind of overdid everything in life. That is totally normal. Don't freak out if that is you. I found myself overeating, drinking too much, working like crazy long hours at work. I would spend more money than I would want to. I would watch more TV than I wanted to. I just felt like it almost was like I was missing an off switch in my brain. That was the only way I knew how to describe it. So before I start looking at your answers, I do want all of you to know. So some of you are totally new to the Life Coach School and Self-Coaching Scholars and the work that we teach here. I do want you to know that one thing that I think makes our approach so unique is that most people are like, what does over drinking have to do with overworking? Right? Like, I don't get it. That doesn't make any sense. And what we really do is we look at any action, anything, whether it's eating or drinking or working or spending money, whatever it is, any action where you feel like you're overdoing it and you feel like you have a hard time reining yourself in, instead of focusing on changing the action, we really focus on getting to the root cause. Okay. And that's what I think makes our work so different and why it is that people experience not just like, yeah, I was successful for like a month or two, but really lasting permanent change. So I'm just going to take a look, see what some of y'all have been writing. Drinking because I'm bored. Eating too much. It tastes so good. It's comforting. Scrolling through social media. I'm overeating when I'm bored at night. Overcommitting, feeling the need to help others, drinking, eating chocolate because I'm stressed or procrastinating. Let's see what else we have here. I go to social media like Facebook and TikTok because I don't have any real goals in my life. Social media is my filler. Overworking because the work is never done. I know a lot of people can relate to that. Overeating at night out of boredom. Maybe it's a habit. Personal development, overdoing personal development because I think I can be better. Over scrolling on media and news, social networking, playing on my phone because it thrills me. Overeating, eating too much, and I don't know why, because I'm being mindless. Yeah. Okay. So you can see, right? This is like a very, very common thing. I think that's an important piece too, just to normalize that a lot of people struggle with this. Over worrying because I think I don't have control. I'm doing it because I want to relax. Yeah. It's so common, right? That humans find themselves doing too much of something. Now, what I want to share with you first is, I think what most people find when they look to like, why am I eating too much? Why am I drinking too much? Why am I working too much? Why am I spending too much money? Most people often really look at kind of 3 reasons why this happens. So they'll say, right, they will blame it on something external. So something like, I don't know, that cake was too tempting, or the wine just tastes too good, or I just can't say no to my boss or my client. They'll blame it on their personality. So this is what I used to say, like, I don't know, I think I'm just an all or nothing person. Like if I do something, I go in 110%. I'm someone that always thinks more is better. Or a lot of times people will say, I don't know, I think it's just kind of like in my family tree. They'll blame kind of their DNA. So they'll say, my dad was a workaholic, or my mom always struggled with her weight, or there are just a lot of addictive personalities in my family. Sometimes people will describe it. I described this for a long time as my brain is missing an off switch. And I want you to just notice whether or not you can relate, right? To blaming like the thing tastes too good. It's too tempting. I think maybe it's my personality. I'm an all or nothing person. Or I just think it kind of like, it's just part of like my DNA. It's who I am. It runs in my family. The reason why I want to point this out is because these 3 kind of reasons are so common and they're so demoralizing, right? And I believed all of these things, by the way, for a long time in my own life. But when you're blaming it on something external or kind of who you are or your DNA, your background, it can feel like kind of hopeless, right? Like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't delete all the chocolate and all the wine in the world. I can't change who I am. I can't change my family tree. It feels kind of like you're very, very stuck. And that piece is what I want to kind of first just free you all from today, is really thinking, is really starting to consider it's not outside of you. It's not who you are. It's not because of your family. The foundation of what we teach inside of Scholars is totally different, right? So what we teach people is you're not overdoing it because of the wine or the food is too tempting. You're not overdoing it because you're an all or nothing person or because of, your DNA or what happened in your family tree or your parents. You're overdoing it because of something that we call the model. Now, if you've never seen this before, if you don't know what the model is, don't want you to freak out, right? This is basically something that when you join Scholars, you start to learn and study in depth, but it's our way of kind of making sense of everything we do or don't do by looking at all of the circumstances, whether it is food or wine or the clock, right? Your schedule, and noticing how our circumstances out in the world will trigger thoughts. Those thoughts create feelings. The feelings, how you feel, drives what you do or don't do. So whether you say yes and keep saying yes and go back for more or keep working, right? And those actions create your results. So I like to think of this a little bit like it's a math equation. Right? And this math equation, it's kind of happening in my unconscious mind. It's happening in your unconscious mind all the time. Most people don't even know that it's there. But once you start to learn this and understand this, it's like getting the key to the universe, right? It's all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I have the formula that explains everything. And if I can understand why I'm doing something, right? If I can see what's happening behind the scenes, then I can also change it. Now, I'm going to show you one quick example. But again, this is something when you join Scholars that you will really work on and study with coaches. But it's basically like every time you encounter something, right? Like you see a piece of chocolate or, you think about the wine or you see the clock when you're at work, you have an unconscious thought about it. That thought triggers an unconscious feeling. And then you end up saying yes to the food, yes to the wine, yes to staying later at work. And the more that you say yes, the more that the results, your negative consequences start to add up. So maybe you're gaining weight or you're waking up with a hangover or you're working really late all the time and you're starting to have strained relationships with your loved ones, right? Keep in mind, this is happening at an unconscious level. Now, when most people, myself included, when most people want to change a behavior where they are overdoing something, they focus all on this action line, right? It's all like, okay, I've been saying yes to food. I've been saying yes to wine. I've been saying yes to work too much. So now I have to start saying no. Now, the problem with this, and this is what most people do, right? The problem is you're only working on one part of the equation. Most people spend no time with the thought or the feeling. They're just throwing like willpower and discipline at change. And you know what happens, right? Eventually your willpower and your discipline kind of gives out, and then you just go right back to the habit. You go right back to saying yes. And so studying and practicing and using the model is what you will do inside of Scholars, right? You'll work with coaches to really find and change these unconscious patterns. That's how you create permanent change. But what I want you to know is that you will learn this. It is amazing. It is a key to the universe. But there are 3 strategies that you really can start practicing right away that can help you make kind of immediate change. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about. All right. These 3 strategies, you can implement them as soon as you get off this class with me, right? These are things that you don't need to work with a coach. You can start practicing these right away. So the first strategy, if you want to stop overing, whatever it is you're overdoing, is you have to stop judging what you're overdoing as bad. Okay? This is important. I'm going to talk about this one in depth. The second strategy is to start allowing the urge to say yes. Now, for a lot of you, allowing is going to sound like a new concept. I'm going to talk about what that means. It's something that we practice a lot inside of Scholars. And then you also have to reframe your commitment. I want you to notice here, none of these are about like a magic pill or a like new diet plan or making a bunch of rules for yourself or being more disciplined, because that doesn't create permanent change. right? It's when you start to do this work, to stop judging what you're overdoing, to start allowing the urges, right? Changing your relationship to the urge and reframing your commitment, in addition to the work of really understanding how the model is playing out. That is the work of learning how to use your mind as a tool, as opposed to what I felt like for the longest time when I was overeating and I was over drinking and I was spending too much money, right? And I was like a workaholic. I felt like I was kind of at odds with my brain. Like I was kind of had to work against it because my brain, I felt like, was always sabotaging me. But the truth was, I didn't know how to do these three things. Okay. The first strategy here, stop judging what you're overdoing is bad. So that can be stop judging over how much you ate last night, stop judging how much you drank last night, stop judging the fact that maybe you missed your kid's bedtime because you worked late again. Whatever you're overdoing, you have to stop judging it as bad. And listen, I know some of you are going to hear me say this, and it's like, I know, I should be nicer. I should be more compassionate. No, that's not what I'm talking about here, right? This is not about like being nice to yourself. You need to stop judging what you're doing is bad, because when you get into this habit of seeing like, oh God, I was so bad, right? Like, why can't I learn my lesson? When am I going to ever figure this out? It fuels a binge and restrict cycle. Now, a lot of you are probably familiar with this, right? You wake up from like a day where you ate too much or you drank too much, or you like promised yourself, you know what, I'm only going to be on my phone, or I'm only going to watch like one Netflix show. And then you stayed up to like past midnight watching TV. A lot of people wake up from a day like that and they immediately judge what they did as bad. I should have known better. What's wrong with me? Why can't I learn my lesson? Why can't I do what's good for me and my family? Now, listen, the problem with that is all of that judgment creates guilt and shame. And you start to believe, this is what I did for a long time. This is what many people do. You start to believe, okay, well, the solution is I just have to be good. I just have to be on my best behavior. Now, what do people do when they think they've been bad and they need to be good? They set crazy, impossible plans, right? Crazy plans for their eating. They're going to clean up their eating and they're going to clean up their drinking and they're going to follow this like magical schedule. They create these totally unrealistic plans. And maybe you can follow it for like a day or a week or a month, but eventually, because it's unrealistic, right? And you're just trying to like willpower your way through, eventually you slip, right? And then you go straight into this like, oh, I'm such a screw up. See, I'm being bad again. And so many times we use all this judgment, right, is then permission to just go deeper into the behavior that we're trying to change, right? It's like, oh, well, I screwed up this diet, eating all this crap, so I might as well just eat more crap, right? Like that is the problem. Stop judging what you're doing as bad. It's not about being nice to yourself. It's about starting to intervene with this binge and restrict cycle. Because I can't tell you how, just demoralizing it can be to constantly feel like, okay, like I got a new plan. I'm going to figure this out. Right. And you're like, I'm good. And then all of a sudden you're bad. Right. And then you find yourself overdoing it even more. So really just like stripping the judgment away is so powerful. Now, of course, the opposite, right, of judging is to just be curious, right? Like to be curious about like, what's happening in my mind, right? Like, what was that math formula? What was the thought that I had? How was I feeling right before, right? Instead of blaming the food for being too tempting or blaming who you are or blaming your DNA, you can just start to be like, hey, what was that like math formula, that model running in my mind behind the scenes, right? Like that is what is so, so transformative. And I will tell you this before we go any further, just this step alone, just stopping judging overeating, over drinking, overworking, overspending as bad. I have seen how that can just be so transformative for people, because when you get out of that binge and restrict cycle, it just opens up so much space for you to actually start doing the work that's going to help you change. Okay, strategy number 2, start allowing the urge to say yes. Now, a lot of people hear me say this and they're like, what do you mean allow, right? I want you to think that most people, when they encounter an urge to eat or drink or keep working or keep scrolling through Instagram, most people, when they encounter that urge, they think they have 2 options. Either they can kind of like go to war with it, like grit your teeth, white knuckle it, like, say no, right? Or they can just give in, right? That's the kind of belief that I think we have for so long. It's like, those are my only two options. But what we teach is like, okay, drop going to war with it, right? And we also want to drop just like automatically giving into it. Can we just like open up to the urge and be curious about it? Most people are not curious about their urges at all because they're like, ew, why do I want to be curious about an urge? Right? It feels terrible to say no to myself when I want something. Or I find a lot of people are also like, I don't think I have any urges, right? Like, I don't know. It just happened. It's just a habit. Like I just ate out of habit, or like the third wine glass just happened. Trust me, there is always an urge there. And really developing curiosity and pausing and just asking yourself, when you notice that a desire appear, instead of immediately like, oh, I got to be good, I got to be disciplined, or just running to the pantry, right? And giving in, you can just have like that moment of just like stopping and dropping into your body. What am I feeling? What does this feel like? What are the sensations? What's happening in my mind? What excuses or justifications, right? Like, it's been a hard day. It's been a long week. I deserve it. Like, what do you notice happening in your mind? What do you notice happening around you, right? Like, what time of day? Who are you with? What's going on in your external environment? Most people are never curious because they're so convinced that it's just like, I got to go to war. And when you got to go to war, all you're focused on is, right, like beating the urge into submission. But urges for anything, they're harmless. They can't make you do anything, right? Like the drink, the food, it just sits there. The clock, it doesn't make you keep working. What you have to really be curious is like, okay, what's happening behind the scenes? So that's strategy number 2, is you start allowing the urge to say yes. And then strategy number 3, and this is a big one for all of you. And this one is something that when I learned it, it just radically changed my life, not just with the things that I was overdoing. It radically changed my life with everything. You have to reframe commitment. Give it kind of like a new meaning, a new understanding. Okay, so think about it this way. When most people think about commitment and being more committed, they think like, okay, I got to be more disciplined, right? I got to stop messing up. I got to stop breaking my promise to myself. I have to just like really like dig in and do it right. And what I want you all to know is that is the wrong way to go about commitment. Being more committed does not mean that you somehow magically are able to be perfect. Being more committed means that you start to pick yourself back up when you fall down, right? That you keep going, even though you ate way more than you wanted to last night, or you drank way more than you wanted to last night, right? It's so often, I think what happens is people break their promise, and then it just becomes like an excuse to kind of be like, well, that didn't work, right? Like I knew I couldn't figure that out. And then we just, again, we go like deeper into overdoing it. I would do this all the time, right? I would like have a night of drinking too much, and I had like sworn up and down, like, I'm only going to have one, or I'm not going to drink at all. And then what I would do is I'd be like, oh, like, not again. What's wrong with me? Why can't I learn my lesson? I would go straight into feeling defeated and blaming myself. And then I would use the fact that I had screwed up as kind of permission to be like, well, I don't know. Like if I'm this much of a screw up, I might as well just enjoy myself. I might as well eat more and drink more. And so one day of over drinking would turn into like a week or a month or 6 months of me just going on autopilot. Instead, when you actually reframe commitment and you say, listen, this is a moment for me to learn. This is a moment for me to grow. This is a moment for me to start to understand the model, understand the thoughts and the feelings that lead to the action. That's when everything will change, right? Every time you don't follow through on your commitment, It's not a time to like give yourself a demerit. It's a decision point. It's a time for you to say like, listen, what I've done in the past is I've made it mean that I'm never going to figure this out and something is wrong with me. And, everyone in my family has like compulsive behaviors. And so I'm kind of doomed to struggle. Or you can make it mean I have an opportunity to find something here. There's something here right now that I can't see, whether it is a thought or a feeling or some part of the pattern that's currently I'm kind of blind to. And I can use this moment of breaking my commitment to actually grow and learn. And so I like to talk about it instead of seeing the moments when you eat too much or you drink too much or you like work too much or spend too much, instead of seeing those moments as setbacks, you can actually turn them into stepping stones, right? And all of this work, whether it is stopping the judgment of whatever you are overdoing, starting to allow the urge and reframing commitment, I see this all not as like, okay, magically, I'm going to be able to walk away from this class and do it perfectly. I see it all as like going to the gym for your mind, right? So think about it. When I started lifting weights, which I started doing a couple of years ago, no joke, when I went to my trainer at first, and sometimes it would be like 5-pound weights. And I was like, this is really heavy for me. I was not someone that was strong. I was not someone that ever lifted. I was like, yeah, the 5-pound weights are no joke. But you keep doing it. You keep showing up, right? You don't make the fact that it's challenging at first mean that there's anything wrong with you. And over time, the more you practice, the easier all of this becomes. I think so often one of the problems when we start trying to implement strategies is we don't see it as like a learning process where it will be challenging at first and you will make mistakes. And the real work is to learn how to keep going. We see it as like, okay, well, I should just be able to do this. Right. And so, I mean, if you can use the analogy of, right, something like learning to ride a bike, I don't care how many classes you attend on how to ride a bike and how many books you read about how to ride a bike and how much logical sense the bike makes because it's got 2 wheels and 2 pedals and a handlebar and a seat. Like you can logically understand all of it. You can, know how it works, but until you actually get your butt in the seat and feel really wobbly and fall over and get back on, that's the only way that you actually teach your brain something new. And that to me is what Scholars really is. It's about going to the gym for your mind. It's about learning how to keep going, learning how to practice, learning how to really see everything that you're doing is like, this is just a math equation that I need to figure out. I don't have to have all this drama. I don't have to make it mean that I'm a screw up, that something's wrong with me or something's wrong with my brain, or I'm too old to change, or I'm never going to be able to do this. I can just see this as like a math problem, right? And just take the drama out of it. And like, what do I need to understand in this equation? But these 3 things, these 3 strategies, just pick one of them today, right? Again, you don't have to do all of them. Pick one to say, can I stop judging how much I ate or how much I drank or how much I'm working? Can I stop judging it as a bad or a problem and start to really just get curious about it so that I don't end up in the binge and restrict? Can I start allowing the urge and being curious about it, right? What's happening in my mind? What's happening in my body? What's happening around me? Instead of feeling like, well, my 2 options are to use willpower and go to war and white knuckle it, or to just give in, right? Can you practice that? Or can you start to reframe your commitment? Can you say, right, like every time that you make a promise and you don't follow through, it's not a sign that you're bad or you did something bad or you're never going to figure this out or it's too hard for you or something is wrong with you. It's just it's a decision point, right? It's a moment for you to say, what is there for me to learn from what happened last night? What new piece can I start to understand? Can I figure out that's going to help me on my journey? Okay. Those are the 3 strategies. I know y'all have a lot of questions. I'm actually going to stop. I'm going to stop the share right now and go back to you all. I'm going to go into your questions. All right. Let me take a sip of water. just scrolling through all of the examples you were giving for the things you overdo. And I just want to say, I really do want to kind of normalize this. So often we feel like we're the person that can't figure it out. Or there's like, I remember being like, I just overdo everything. You're really not alone if you feel like you are struggling with this and struggling with many things that you find yourself overdoing. Okay, scroll. Let's get to questions here. Where are the questions? Okay, how do I stop judging myself as bad the day after a binge? How can I think instead? Okay, so one of the ways to do this is, and this is where I think why the model is such a powerful tool to really learn in scholars and work with a coach on. One of the ways that you do this is you start to see what happens when you think the thought, like when you think, oh God, I was so bad, or something's wrong with me, or I'm such a screw up. You start to uncover what that creates for you, right? When you think like, God, I'm such a screw up. I used to have that thought as well, right? I'd drink too much, I'd eat too much, I'd like overdo something. And my automatic, habitual, unconscious thought was, I'm a screw up. Now, for me, that created a lot of shame, right? I felt a lot of shame when I believed the reason that I kept doing this was that something was wrong with me, right? So that was a feeling that was created in the model. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, so when I feel shame about how much I drank, how much I ate, whatever it is, when I feel shame that I missed my kid's bedtime last night because I was working late and I'm telling myself I'm a bad parent, how do I show up in life? What do I do? Now, listen, the answer is going to be different for everyone, but here's what it looked like for me. When I felt shame, that to me, I didn't like reach out to people for help. I wasn't curious about what happened last night. It's like, I just wanted to crawl under the covers and like forget that last night had happened. Right. It's that kind of sense for me of like looking away. It's like, oh God, I don't even want to think about what I did. So I wasn't curious about what happened the night before. I also often would just go into this spiral of like beating myself up, right? I wouldn't just be like one time, be like, God, you're such a screw up, Rachel. I would just like, that record would like be on repeat in my head over and over and over. So I'd be beating myself up all day long, creating all this negative emotion. Now, guess what happens for a lot of us when we feel a lot of negative emotion that we don't know what to do with? We turn to the thing that we are used to overdoing. So we reach for the food, or we reach for the drink, or we reach for our phone, right? We turn on TV. We go straight into the habit that we're actually trying to change. And so when I could start to like, it's like diagram this out in the model, and I would see, oh, that thought, it's not just that I'm being mean to myself and I should be nicer. No, that thought creates shame, and the shame leads to more of the thing that I don't want, right? More of the eating, more of the drinking, more hiding, more beating myself up. Like that thought you start to see is actually part of the habit. It's actually fueling the habit. And when you start to understand it, that's why I think the model is so powerful, to just see it as like, listen, everything in my life, I can just see as a math equation. When you start to understand that, it gives your brain a new perspective. It teaches your brain like, oh, wait, but when I think that thought, and then I feel the shame, and then I end up doing more of the thing that I don't want to do, you start to see that thought is actually perpetuating it. And I think that just the ability to see how the math equation works, it gives you like a little bit of almost like permission to be like, maybe this isn't so helpful, right? Like, I know I've been beating myself up for years. This is what I think is really powerful. I think all of you here are probably very good at beating yourself up. You have probably spent a very long time doing it, right? Most people have. And it's like, listen, if beating yourself up was going to create change, it would have worked by now, right? It's not like this is, your first time trying it out. Most people who are here have a lot of experience with it. And so when you start to understand what a thought like that creates in the model, right, and what result, how it's actually fueling and perpetuating the habit, all of a sudden you see like, oh, there's a reason for me to practice something new beyond just like, yeah, you should be nice to yourself. I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. It's like, oh, I should just be nice to myself and I should just be kinder. It's like, no, every time I think that thought, it's actually leading to more of the thing that I don't want. And so what we really teach inside Scholars, and this is why it's so powerful to work with a coach, is because I think the knee jerk is to just go to like really positive thinking, right? Now, for me, and I think for most people, when you are very used to using negative language to talk about overeating, over drinking, overworking, spending too much money, wasting too much time on the phone, when you're very used to really using negative language about yourself, and when you did it, then trying to go to positive thinking is just going to feel like bullshit, right? You're just like, I don't believe this for a second. And so what you do with a coach is really work to find, okay, what is language that actually feels believable for my brain? Because if it's not believable, it's not going to work. And so sometimes it can be a thought like, every time I tell myself I'm a screw up, I'm fueling the habit. I'm making it more likely that I'm going to eat more. I'm going to drink more. I'm going to perpetuate this thing that I don't want. For me, for my brain, that was way more believable than being like, it's totally normal. You're still a good person. You're still lovable. I was like, whoa, I'm not ready for that. But I was ready for like, okay, I can see that it creates more shame and it just kind of fuels the habit. How do I deal with emotional eating at night in particular? Well, I mean, I think the fact that you recognize that it's emotional eating is a huge thing, right? So emotional eating, which we often talk about inside Scholars, is like numbing or buffering. It's really like eating as a way to cope with emotion. So one of the strategies that I talked with you all about today is about allowing urges. Now you can do the same thing with your emotions. So a lot of people, when I was going through the Q&A, people were saying, oh, I eat or I drink because I'm bored. I saw boredom come up a lot. It's like, you can learn how to be curious about these emotions, as opposed to what we normally do, which is we're like, oh my God, I got to make it go away. Like, I'm too stressed. I got to make it go away. I'm too bored. I feel too insecure or too awkward or whatever it is. I'm too anxious. We have that same kind of mentality that we have with urges, which is like, either I got to go to war with it or I got to give into it. Everything that you learn in Scholars is like, what if there's a third way that just no one ever taught us, right? That like, we should have learned in school. Someone should have taught us, when we started understanding our emotions, that you can actually observe your emotions and observe how they feel in your body and observe what thoughts are connected to them and start like taking the drama out of your emotions. So I think this is another really important thing is, inside Scholars, part of your work, part of what you're practicing is really learning how to have the full human experience. And the full human experience is, listen, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to feel connected and I'm going to be excited. And also sometimes I'm going to have grief and I'm going to be bored and I'm going to be angry. And how do I have that full human experience and not just turn to food or turn to working late or turn to drinking, right? Or turn to buying something new? Like, learning how to do that. I really feel like this is what we should all be taught in school. If I had been taught this in school, because I will tell you, I started having a lot of these kind of overdoing it behaviors when I was a kid, right? It really started for me with food when I was probably in, middle school. If someone had just taught me like, hey, you know what? These emotions are normal. And here's how you can teach your brain how to respond to them differently. That is what is so powerful. Can this be applied to overreacting to a child's behavior? Yes. And I use it all the time with my toddler. I will tell you that. Yes, 100%, because you can take, right? So when I snap at my toddler, right? It gets, snapping is probably putting it nicely. I lost my temper with him this morning. I can put that in the action line of the model and then start to back it up, right? And like, okay, what was that unconscious thought and unconscious feeling? Now, it's so much more powerful to do that than to slip into what most people do of like, oh my God, I'm a bad parent. I'm a bad mom. I'm a bad dad. I should know better. None of those thoughts are helpful. And also, once you start to learn the model, you start to see that's not actually what was the thought and the feeling that triggered how I responded. So yes, all of this work can be applied to all of your relationships. It is incredibly powerful for that. Do you have any tips for dealing with feeling deprived? Like I punish myself when I don't eat the cookie. Okay, yes. This is another thing that's really important to see is that deprivation, we think, again, this is goes back to what I was talking about for what most people usually blame overdoing it on, right? We blame like, oh, like the cookie was too tempting or the wine was too tempting. This is the same thing here, right? You start to see that deprivation doesn't happen because you said no to the cookie or no to the glass of Chardonnay. It happens, you feel deprived because you are creating it with your mind. You are thinking thoughts like, oh, this is so unfair. Why is this my struggle? Why does my best friend get to eat anything she wants, right? Why does my loved one always know when to stop with a glass of wine and I don't, right? You start to see that deprivation isn't because you're saying no. It's because of that unconscious chatter in your mind. And I will tell you, it is crazy powerful when you recognize this, because so often I think when people want to change, especially with the things we consume, when people want to change, right, what we eat, what we drink, the assumption is like, okay, well, like I want to do this. I want to be healthy. It's good for me. I want to be a good role model for my loved ones. But behind the scenes, we're like, and I'm just going to have to like suffer in the name of health, right? I thought this for a very long time, like, okay, well, it's really important to be healthy. So I guess I'm just going to have to like suffer with all this deprivation. But when you start understanding the model, right, and working with coaches and scholars and really seeing, wait, I'm the one creating deprivation, like I'm creating it with these unconscious thoughts. That is what total freedom is, because you start to realize every time you feel deprived, it has nothing to do with what you're consuming. It has to do with what's happening in your mind, which means you can stop feeling deprived, right? I will tell you this, like I often felt like, okay, well, I can be really good and like not drink, but then I'm just going to spend the whole night feeling like I'm missing out. And to go to this place where now it's like I can hang out with my friends and they're drinking and I'm not, and there's zero deprivation. It really is mind blowing. Does mindfulness help? Yeah. So here's the thing. Actually, everything that I was showing you today in terms of writing out the model, stopping, judging whatever you're overdoing, learning how to allow your urges, learning how to reframe commitment, it's all a form of mindfulness in that you're kind of like slowing down your mind, right? Think about like any kind of habit. It's like really fast. It's really kind of automatic and unconscious. When you bring mindfulness to it, what you're doing is you're just like taking a moment to pause and being like, hey, what's happening here? What's happening in my mind? What's happening in my body? How am I feeling? What's happening around me? Like mindfulness is just really that act of being present with yourself, which when you're in a habit of overdoing it, most people feel like they're the opposite of being present, right? It's just kind of like, I'm numbing out, I'm zoning out, I'm checked out. It feels like it just happens, right? Like, I don't know how I spent the money. I don't know how I ate this much. I don't know how I worked this late. It just happened. All of these tools really are, I think, kind of like key strategies for putting mindfulness into practice. Yeah, this person says here, when I start overeating, I sort of go unconscious. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So what we're teaching you, what you really learn with these tools is how to become conscious again, right? How to see everything, all of the habits that have been relegated to your lower brain, how to bring them back into your awareness, because you can't change what you can't see, right? So many times this model is operating, these thoughts and these feelings that are driving your behaviors, they're operating totally outside of your, awareness, but we can't change it if we can't see it. But really starting to do this work, doing the work inside of scholars, working with coaches, starting to really, like I said, like go to the gym for your mind. That is what is so transformative, because when you get out of that unconscious state, when you stop feeling like, I don't know, it's just a habit, it just happened. When you start to see like, oh, there was this thought, that led to a feeling. And that's why I said yes. And then another thought that led to another feeling. And that's why I said yes again. That's when you actually lay the groundwork and the foundation for change. So what I want to do now is actually talk to you. I mean, I've talked a lot about scholars, but I do, for those of you who are totally brand new, I do want to give you kind of like a little behind the scenes peek at what this looks like. Because when I talk about, going to the gym for your mind, we all know what it's like to go to a gym, right? And what that looks like. There's treadmills and there's weights and there's a trainer. But when we talk about it in terms of going to the gym for our mind, I think a lot of times people are like, I don't really get what that means. And what I'm talking about is basically the tools that you learn today, you get to practice with coaches. So Scholars is full of people that are certified with the Life Coach School, coaches that you get to have when you join. You get to have a one-on-one session with them once a week. Every single week that you're in there, you get to meet with someone one-on-one, which is just like this. Like, imagine getting to work with me for 20 minutes and just bring all your questions. And I don't understand this. And how do I stop judging myself? And how do I find a believable thought? You get to bring it to a one-on-one session with a coach and start to do that work every single day inside of Scholars. There are calls, there are group coaching calls where there are people just like me teaching these tools, teaching these concepts. And I will tell you this, for all of you who might be like, okay, the one-on-one sounds good, but like, I don't really know about the group. It is so transformative. It is so powerful to see other people that are struggling with the exact same thing. In many ways, I wish you all could see the Q&A here and just like the question after question after question about these topics, because I think one of the things that can be very frustrating is when you're stuck in a habit of overdoing, it can feel like you're alone in it. It can feel like everybody else seems to have this figured out. Why can't I get my shit together? What is wrong with me? And that's what's so powerful about the group coaching calls is you watch as people come on and they share what they're struggling with: overeating, over drinking, overworking, setting a goal and not reaching it, snapping at their kids, right? Snapping at their partner, whatever it is. We tackle everything, anything and everything in Scholars that humans struggle with, we're working on, right? So you start to see that. And I think it just like, for me, it kind of like cracks open my heart a little bit. And that every time my brain wants to be like, you're alone, you're the only person that can't figure it out. It's like, no, this is a very human experience. No one teaches us how to manage our mind. No one teaches us how to have a peaceful relationship with our negative emotions. No one teaches us anything about how habits work or the brain works. And you start to see that you're kind of in it together, that we're all doing this work, and really that every human needs to go to the mind gym. Like, this is not unique to the people here. I think that this work, it really is something that it should be taught when we are kids. We should learn how to do this. And now we're just learning when we're older, right? And that to me is so powerful. So you get those one-on-one you get the one-on-one sessions every week. You get to meet with someone like me and really bring all your questions, all your concerns, everything you're struggling with. You get these daily group calls that you can join. There's replays for all of them. We have an amazing private podcast so that you can also, if you can't attend live, you can just listen on the go when you're doing your commute, when you're going out for a walk, when you're washing the dishes, right? When you're sitting in your toddler's room while he's trying to fall asleep. You can listen to these calls. So you really can take this work and learn from it wherever you are. We have special workshops. And then I want to actually take you in. Let's see if I can do this and show you a little bit of what is available to you, because it really is incredible how much is available to you. So hold on one second while I share my screen again. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you log in to the main screen of Scholars. I'm just going to move my picture here so we can see it. So I talked about the one-on-one coaching. I talked about the daily group coaching calls that you can take wherever you are, wherever you're on the go. But the other things I want to show you, there's two. There's an area called Ask a Coach. Oops, sorry. Ask a Coach. This is a place where you can post anything you're struggling with, totally anonymously. and you can post any model that you're working on, and a coach is going to answer you. Not only that, so not only do you always have a coach that's here to help, you don't have to wait for, your one-on-one sessions, but you can really take a look at like other people and what they're working on. You will learn so much from the other people in here. So that's another coaching resource. I mean, you're basically never without a coach when you join Scholars. And then the other thing we have is the study vault. And I think the study vault is amazing because it is basically kind of, I would say kind of like small, intense courses and workshops on so many topics, right? How to get 5 pounds stronger. This was a course that the founder of the Life Coach School, Brooke Castillo, taught about how to actually build muscle. Mastering your emotional well-being, building self-confidence and self-love. We have special courses here on stop overeating, on money, on stop over drinking. I mean, there's so much here. So it really means that like whatever you are particularly working on, whatever you want to focus on, there is going to be a resource in here for you. So when you join Scholars, it's a monthly membership. It's $297 every month when you join, and you can cancel at any time. But when you join, you just get immediate access to all of this. You get access to all of these resources. So you can take these courses, you can do it self-paced, whatever you're most interested in. You get access to the one-on-one coaching. You get access to the group coaching. You've got the private podcast, so you can take this and listen to this wherever you are, and you have access to ask a coach. I mean, there's so many resources when you basically go to the Mind Gym. And I really think that's what makes this work so different and so unique, is that you have so much support in here to help you out. And I will just say, I think if you are in that place of feeling like, I don't know why I ate that much. I don't know why I'm drinking that much. I don't know why I'm snapping at my kids. I don't know why I'm a workaholic. If you're in that place where you really feel just kind of perplexed because you know that what you're doing isn't aligned with what you actually want in life, this is why the work that you will practice in here and the work that you will do is so transformative. Because to go from that space of like, I don't know, I don't get it, I can't figure this out, I tried so many things for so many years, nothing worked. And then to get to this place to see like, oh, I just need to look at a model. Like I just need to find the thought that's creating the feeling, that's driving the action, and then start to practice teaching my brain a new way to look at the situation, a new way to think about it. It's so empowering. And that's why I think this work is so incredible, because it really is like learning a skill set that then you can apply to anything in life. So if you come here because you want to stop overeating, you're going to learn a skill set that you can apply to anything, right? It's like, well, why am I not asking for a raise at work? Use the model. Why did I sign up for that gym membership and I never go? Use the model. Why am I snapping at my kids? Use the model. It really is learning like the foundational tool that will help you change anything and everything in your life that you want to. All right. I am going to go back to answering questions. If you want to, if you do want to sign up right now, and I encourage you all to do it, it will be the best money you ever spend. Trust me. All you have to do is head on over to thelifecoachschool.com/join. All right. I'm going to go back to some of your questions. I'm good all day long, but the minute I taste that glass of wine, everything goes out the window. How do I catch myself right there and continue to regulate my behavior? This is a perfect place to apply the model, right? Because the way that you're talking about it is how most of us talk about it, right? It's like, I don't know, I just had one sip or I just had one bite and like everything goes out the window. But of course, that's not at all what happens, right? This is a perfect place where you could practice allowing the urge. So it's like having that sip, putting the glass down, and then being curious. Okay, so what happens now? What's happening next? What am I saying? Most people at first will be like, I don't know, there's nothing there. That's how I felt. I was like, I don't know. People keep saying that there's always a thought. I don't know what it is. But this is where the more that you do this work and the more that you practice curiosity and starting to like allow those desires instead of like, oh, I shouldn't drink more, right? Or just like, whatever, I poured the glass, so I might as well finish it. The more you start to see, oh, there is a thought, right? And so that is the thing. It's like slowing down. Habits are fast, right? They're fast and they're unconscious. And the way to start to intervene with anything you're overdoing is by slowing it down and seeing what's happening in your mind and seeing what's happening in your body. But I will tell you, this is so common that it doesn't matter if it's wine or ice cream. People will feel like, well, I like had one bite, so they're like, it's all out the window now. But of course it's not. I know the model, and when I'm consciously working on it, it works. And then I fall out of going to the brain gym. What are some ways to keep me in the work? Well, all you have to do is work on the model, like put not going to the brain gym in your action line, right? And then see, okay, what is it? What thought and feeling leads to, you know what? I don't have time to do this today. The other thing that I would want to raise for you here is notice if you have any judgment for it or about it, right? Like this is what a lot of people that I see, and I remember thinking this as well for a long time, is like I'd like do the model and I was like really curious, and then like a week or a month would go by and I hadn't done any of my coaching work. Instead of being curious about that, I was so quick to be like, oh my God, you have this tool. It works. It makes sense. Why aren't you doing it? What's wrong with you? I would slip right back into those patterns of beating myself up. So you really can use it two ways to understand, okay, so like, what's the thought that leads to me not practicing the tools? And then more importantly, so often what happens, and this is why reframing commitment is so important, we use yesterday's mistake, put that in quotes, right? Because I don't see it as a mistake. I see it as a stepping stone. We use it as like, oh, well, I broke my streak. So, you know, that's gone. I can't even tell you how many times that was my pattern in life, that I'd be like on a streak. And as soon as the streak was broken, it was like, oh, well, I mean, there's no more streak. So why am I going to keep going? You have to just start to really see the only thing that's preventing you from going back to the brain gym is a thought, right? And if you can find that and start to wiggle it and shift it, that's all it takes to really transform commitment for you. Question, how are self-esteem and overdoing related? Well, I think it depends for a lot of people. I will just share one thing from my personal experience is that I really, for a very long time, believed that my value was connected to how much I got done, right? And how productive I was and how good of an employee I was back when I was someone's employee, and how good of like a girlfriend I was. And so I was very kind of committed to like constantly working because it was like I had to keep proving my worth, right? It's like I had to keep like, I don't know, like handing in my slip at the end of the day to be like, see, look at everything I did. Look at everything I did. You know the problem with that, right? Most people here, you do a ton, right? You are getting a lot done. You're producing so much. And it's just like, there's no amount of things that you can do or things that you can check off your to-do list or things that you can create that are ever going to make you feel worthy, right? Productivity and worthiness are completely separate things. And that's what I think the model is really powerful in helping for you to see and to show you, because so many people are in that trap of like, yeah, but like if I'm just like lazy, then we equate it to like somehow I'm bad. And so when you do the work of really seeing like I'm worthy no matter what, I'm lovable no matter what, no matter how much I ate, no matter how much I drank, no matter how much I got done yesterday, my worth and my lovability, it's innate, it's there. I was born with it, right? That's just a given. Then you can start to really approach your kind of, if you're overworking or overdoing or over organizing, that was a big thing for me. You can start to see like, oh, one has nothing to do with the other. And I think the model is a really powerful way to see that. I spend hours every day looking at my phone. I feel like it's hard to get moderation in this because of course we need our phones for things, and I need to have it on case I need to have it on me in case my husband's or kids contact me. Yes, of course, right? And I feel like this is a big area where the work that you do to learn how to respond to the urge to check your phone is going to be so powerful. And listen, that's why I always say this work is it's like learning a meta skill, because the work that you do to learn how to stop checking your phone for hours is the exact same work that you can apply to anything else in your life that you're overdoing. All right, listen. This was so fun. I love talking about this. Thank you so much for all of your questions. If you are not a part of Scholars, go on over and join. It really is the best investment you will ever make. You have so many opportunities to work with people just like me, to get coaching, to get support, and to finally stop feeling like the food or the wine or the work or all the things that you're overdoing. It's just like, I'm never going to figure it out. And it just happened. And it's always going to be something that I struggle with. I will tell you this. You are here to do more in this world than worry about how much you ate yesterday, or worry about how much you drank, or to check things off a to-do list. And when you can make headway, when you can make permanent, lasting change on these issues, it frees up so much mental space to actually do and go after the things that you truly care about. That's why this work is so powerful. All right, everyone. I hope that I see you in Scholars. Make sure you head on over to the lifecoachschool.com/join and sign up. I want to see you in there. All right, everyone. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.